Welcome to the Peaceful Entrepreneur Podcast, where together we're learning how to have peace in the process of everyday business ownership by improving one step at a time how we think and what we do. I'm your host, Amy Stout. I think we can all agree that managing finances and finances in general is just a very stressful topic. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and emotional about money just because we don't know what's going on and we aren't equipped to manage our money well. And when it comes to being an entrepreneur, that problem is multiplied, right? Because not only do we have to manage our personal, but now we have to manage our business finances. And if we are not gifted and trained in that, it can become a very large point of stress very, very quickly. So I wanted to bring on my friend Hannah today, who is absolutely an expert in the field of finances when it comes to entrepreneurship, because I think this is one of the largest pieces of the puzzle when it comes to having a peaceful mindset in general, because finances are just such a big part of that. So if your finances are not peaceful, you absolutely will not be able to fully be a peaceful entrepreneur. So I'm excited to dive in today. If you are in a place where you're just completely overwhelmed with finance and you don't even want to look at your banking app, been there. And we have some really great first itty bitty steps that you can take, and also some more involved support that I have personally taken part in and has truly, I'm not exaggerating, changed my life and changed my business. So let's get into the conversation with Hannah. Hi, friend. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yes, this has been a long time coming. We've been chatting now for quite a few months.
Yes. I think last summer was the first time we connected.
Yes, it was. And okay, we do have to talk a little bit about our friendship, because the first time we met, I was just so drawn to you. And I was like, first of all, she's adorable. Second of all, we think the same way. And I just wanted to be friends. But I also didn't want to be creepy about it because we had just met. And so I kind of played it cool a little bit. Fast forward to, I hired you a few months later. So I hired you in December.
Yes, we started in December.
And now it's March. So we've been working together for almost 4 months. And then more recently took our conversation over to iMessage and just started sharing a lot more about our personal life. And then you told me what about when you first met me?
I was also very drawn to you, and I thought I was having deja vu from one of my best friends from high school. We're still close and we still get along really well. We live in different states, so we don't see each other. But I literally, the whole time we were on the call, I was just like, are we already friends? Do I already know this person? So yeah, it's very, very similar of just we're just meant to be friends. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And since we've been talking, we've just been realizing wow, we have the same passions and drives and goals. We just have different ways of carrying them out. And I think that is so special.
I do too. I was thinking it might have something to do, I'm a little more introverted. And so I lean to the more introverted side of really heavily organized, thus bookkeeping. I get to do more independently and the analytical side of all of that, and not quite as much as the front and center and outgoing creativity side of things.
Interesting. Yeah. And I'm a little bit more the outgoing piece of that equation, but still somewhat introverted too. Well, we're going to get into how you've changed my life, because I'm not exaggerating. You really have. But tell the people about what you do and why it's so important to you.
Well, I am honored, but yes, I am Hannah, and I'm the Young Wealth Co. Bookkeeping firm. It's all virtual, and we work exclusively with entrepreneurs because I love entrepreneurs and I love making money peaceful for entrepreneurs. Probably another reason why we get along so well is the peace is really important to both of us. But I think there's a lot of just lack of education when it comes to money and money management. And so that causes a lot of fear and stress because people don't know what to do. And so I just happened to take all these classes in high school, and my parents were good with money and they taught me how to be good with money. And I just have always been drawn to me. It's like a puzzle, and I get to figure out the puzzle and I get to plan the puzzle and make it all beautiful and make all the pieces fit. And so money doesn't stress me out. And so to be able to share that and like extend that piece to other people so that it doesn't have to stress them out, that's super exciting. And that's really amazing for me to be able to like make a career of helping people.
I love it. And you could probably like tally up how many times I've said like, you are such a blessing to me since the very first time we like had a call about working together, because I think the fact that it doesn't stress you out makes you so perfect for it. Because for me, I'm like, I don't want to stress somebody else out. So if I know that I'm not stressing you out and I can just like send something over and you'll just be like, yeah, here's what you should do. It's great. It's perfect.
Yes, I think it's really interesting to be unattached, because like it's someone else's money. It's not my money anyway. Like it's not really my situation to be attached to like that. Like it's not going to trigger me the way your own money does trigger you. And so I can approach it from that like peaceful standpoint of like, actually, you don't have to worry. Everything's fine.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and what you were talking about with like the financial education that is kind of lacking. Yeah, why isn't that taught in high school, first of all? And why isn't it like a gen ed in college?
I agree. I've noticed there are some budgeting classes in high school that like even some friends took, but they told me it was all just like balancing checkbooks. Like it was not applicable, like outdated. So to have a class where it's like, this is how to make an actual budget, and this is how to change the budget when your life changes, and this is how to like prepare for taxes. This is what like your taxes are, like that type of thing. Because everybody has to pay taxes, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Everybody should be budgeting, regardless of whether or not you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like that's another cool thing. I love working with entrepreneurs, and like the more we get the business finances under control and we have that structure and organization there, that transfers into your personal life. And so it all just like flows through because the concepts are the same across the board. Well, unfortunately, if you're not pursuing business, you're not pursuing something where like the bookkeeping and budgeting is like essential, it does oftentimes just kind of get thrown under the rug, or like, I just cross my fingers and hope I have enough like money to pay all my bills and we'll just see what's left at the end of the month. And to me, it does make me want to panic. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're just crossing your fingers? Where's the plan?
Yeah, totally. And I can't believe that I functioned like that for so long, but I think it's just because money feels big and intimidating, but it just doesn't actually have to be. Like the way that you have helped educate me and given me resources has really made it like actually so manageable. And it's like, oh, why was I so freaked out by this?
I
It's
think
not that bad.
too, depending on the way you grow up, like, there's no guarantee that our parents are going to be good with money. So like, I feel very blessed that my parents were good with money and they like shared that education to me and like my siblings. But if money like destroyed your parents' marriage, or if money caused a lot of trauma in your life, or you did not have money growing up, and so you like kind of hold that like scarcity mindset of there will never be enough money and we are barely going to make it by. If you have a lot of that in your childhood coming into your adult life, I think that adds to the stress and the like emotional triggers associated with money. And so that obviously, like, depending on the severity, you probably need a counselor or a therapist to work through those problems. But it really does just like, we're so attached to money, and it can kind of create these deep like inaccuracies in our minds. So like our emotions are not facts. Our emotions are not reality even necessarily. And so if we don't have the facts, if we don't know how to find the facts, and we only have the emotion, that is going to leave us with that really like big and intimidating and like uncertain and just overwhelmed sense around our money, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Would you say that is the core reason why money is stressful to people?
Yes, I would say like no one's perfect. And so because None of us are perfect. We are all going to manage our money imperfectly. And depending on how imperfect that is growing up, that will definitely affect you as an adult. And it could also be the flip side of like maybe your parents were really wealthy, but now you are not wealthy. And so you're like trying to figure out how to survive and like pay your bills without parents covering your expenses or that type of thing. So it can go in either direction of just that fear around money, or even like if you've always been poor and now all of a sudden there's like five figures in your bank account and you've never seen money like that, that also is overwhelming because it's unfamiliar, it's unknown, and you're going to have all this fear of like, what if I do something wrong? What if I lose it all? What if I make a mistake? That type of thing, because again, you're unfamiliar with it and it's causing all of this anxiety and like emotional trigger in your heart to like panic, and then that leads to self-sabotage and all the bad things that we don't want to do.
Right, exactly. I think that a really important note here is that we kind of just expect our mindset to align with the amount of money we have. So it's like, well, when I have $10,000 months, then like I'll be good. But it's actually separated. Like the amount of money that you have and how you mentally think about it is completely separate. And you have to do the work, even when you have a small amount, to be able to manage the larger amount better, or it will literally overwhelm you, like you said.
Yes, for sure. Or I guess like there's a lot of fear there too of just like if you don't know what to do with the money, you can't make good decisions, right? You're unsure of like how to continue growing or how to steward that well because the whole thing is unknown, or you feel like it's a fluke. Like, oh, it just happened that one month, it's not going to happen again, or like that just it was an accident, or I don't even know how I made that much. Or depending on the amount of expenses you have, maybe you did make 10,000 but you spent $9,000 to make that 10,000, so you've really only made $1,000. And so
Yeah.
the five-figure months are not all that they're talked up to be necessarily.
Yeah. I think that's because it's so clickbaity, either 5-figure months or 6-figure businesses. And they have become my pet peeves because it's like, guys, number one, that's not necessarily what you should be setting your sights on. There are much more important goals. And number two, it's not what it looks like.
I always tell people like if you're going on like percentage basis, a percentage, like a general percentage, most people can't even do this. If you make $100,000, right? You pass six figures, amazing. You can only pay yourself half of that at most. Even then, most people have enough expenses they can't even pay themselves half of that, and still, like that's still a $40,000 or $50,000 income. Like that
Yeah.
is middle class and like lower income. Like that is not rich. You are not rich making six figures, not even a little bit. So I think people are really misinformed, and it is very clickbaity, and then it makes
Mm-hmm.
people feel bad when they're not at these income levels, when really like there's a lot more, there's a lot more that goes into it, and you can make that much and have a higher like profit margin so that you're able to pay yourself more. But again, you have to be really structured and really diligent and really organized to use your resources strategically. Otherwise, you will just be spending the money as fast as you earn it, and you're not making any improvement at all.
Yeah. It's literally not about how much money you have, it's about how you manage it.
Absolutely.
Truly, truly. Okay, so we've kind of established like why money is stressful. And there are a lot of reasons that it can be stressful. And as entrepreneurs, we get double the stress because we have to manage our business finances and our personal finances. Double the stress, but also double the fun, because the way I think about it is like, if I can't afford this now, all I have to do is get X amount more clients and then I can. And like, you can't do that in a corporate job. So I love that piece of it. But overall, can be a very stressful scenario. And I personally like got to a point last year where I was like just consistently stressed about money, literally because I wasn't doing what I needed to do to manage it and stay informed and put things where they needed to go every month to like cover stuff. And so I just literally avoided opening my banking app. Like I got stressed tapping on my banking app and I was like, this is a problem. And when every time I saw your reels about being peaceful about your finances, I was like, this is what I need. This is my girl. I've known it since the beginning. So I want to start kind of talking about the solution to this issue. And I feel like we can kind of take it gradually, that it's like, if someone is just kind of where I was, of like, this is just, I do not even want to open the app. It freaks me out. I don't want to think about it. I just avoid it, sweep it under the rug. What's the first thing, the first step that they can take to start making that better?
I would say it is very scary, but knowledge is your power. Like, it might not be what you want it to be, right? Like, it might be really bad. Your financial situation could be not what you want it to be. You could be struggling more than you realized or you hoped. But the only way you can make a change and improve that and fix that is if you recognize and you see what is actually happening. So your knowledge is going to be your best friend here, and sticking your head in the sand does not solve anything. And that's just kind of like you already said, that's where the continued stress just like festers in your heart, because you're like, it makes you just feel really uncomfortable about it. And so if you can take that first step to recognizing, it might be hard initially to like just sit down and look at the numbers, but that is the first step, because we have to see what's going on before we can make any changes and make any improvements. And you might find it's actually not that bad at all. And
That's what I was thinking too.
You might find it's actually not a problem at all and everything's totally fine. You were freaking out for no reason, simply because you were uninformed. And so being informed will give you that piece of like, okay, this is what's happening. Even if it's not where you want to be right now, we now know what to do, and we can create a plan to get you to where you want to be, so that it's not this unknown, uncertain, like really stressful thing. It's just one of the many things that you're working on. And now it's not overwhelming and confusing, because we know exactly what you have to do. It's just step 1, step 2, and step 3, rather than I have no idea how I'm going to pay all my bills and I don't know if I'm making enough. And even like for you, like, am I going to be able to buy a house? Am I going to be able to like support my family? Like down the road, as the business continues growing, it takes away all of that, because now we know, oh, we do have enough money. Everything is like organized, and this is what we need to do to continue saving, growing, and being strategic with our resources.
Yeah. Absolutely. I definitely had that moment of, I was really stressed, and then it wasn't actually as bad as I thought. And like, yes, I had a lot of extra expenses last year. We took a pretty hefty vacation, and then I was in 2 weddings. And I just didn't plan ahead and think ahead. Like, I knew that money was going to come out from those things, but I wasn't actually like laying it all out on a spreadsheet. And so then it all like caught up to me, and that's what I was freaking out about. But like, once all of that got taken care of, and after we've actually been tracking our expenses for 4 months now, I look at stuff and I'm like, oh, like I can buy a house. It's fine. Like, I can hire someone else under our business. It's fine. I don't know. I thought it was going to take a lot longer to get to the point where we actually are right now, because I just didn't realize that we were so close to it.
Yeah, I think another point there, when you are actively looking at the numbers on a regular basis, you're going to stop making impulsive purchases, and you're going to start making more of the like really specific purchases, because you're thinking about it more, and you're thinking about like, oh, I want my spreadsheet to look like this month, and so I'm not buying that, I'm buying this instead. Or if I skip buying this, then I can afford this instead. And so I think that's also where some people get caught up in like, oh, I don't like budgeting because it's too restrictive. And that's really not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to just help you be as organized as possible, because there is a give and take, right? At any given period, we only have so much to go around. And so if we plan ahead and we determine these are the most important things that we want to pay for in this time period, in this month, then yes, you're saying no to other things, but because we said yes to the important things, or we're being strategic, it's actually going to set us up for future success and growth in both your business and your personal life. So
yeah, I love that. And I feel like I've just always been in like I've just always been in saving mode. Like, if I spend anything, it's as little as possible. And I feel able, and I feel permission now to plan to be in a spending era almost, because I'll know what I have to spend. And I'm very excited about that. Like we're about to buy our first home. And so I have this like Amazon list of all the things I want to get for our house. And there may be like slight DIY renovations involved or slightly more than DIY renovations involved. But either way, it's like I'm going to be able to spend money, which is fun. Spending money is fun without the guilt of it because I'll just be like, okay, I've looked. I know I have this much to spend this month. And once I run out, I'll stop. And next month, I'll find out what I have to spend then.
Yes, yes, my husband and I actually do. This is like a fun tip for anyone who has problems with spending and that guilt. We have two different checking accounts. We have one checking account that is our like expense account. So like all of our expenses come out of that. Then we have a second checking account that we have automatic transfers to. And that's our spending money. That's the blow money that whatever you want to do with that money, however much is in that account, like as long as we always kind of discuss like what do we want to spend the money on this month so we're on the same page. Sometimes we'll do something together. Sometimes we'll each get a portion and buy our own things. Sometimes if we have extra money, we'll add some more money to that account. But it's nice to have that designated money to know like I can spend this with any guilt because this money is literally for me to spend. And it's not to save because I have different money to save.
So good. So good. Oh my gosh. Do you have any free resources that someone could benefit from who's just starting on this journey?
Yes, I have a little financial strategy framework actually that you can download on my Instagram page. And this like step by step walks you through what to do of like how to kind of get organized initially, how to make your first budget, what to look out for, and then how to come back and assess what went well, what didn't go well, and how can you continue to like adjust it for the future so that it is more and more applicable to you and helpful to you as you become more strategic with your spending.
Love. So good. Okay, I'll link that in the description of the podcast too, so people can just go straight to it. So, okay, this is my favorite. This is my favorite part of this conversation because I want to talk about like working specifically with you because that is what has really changed the game for me. And I know that not everybody is immediately in a financial place to be able to hire a bookkeeper, but for me, it was the first like thing that I outsourced in my business. And I think that it is a good like first thing to outsource. And it is relatively inexpensive in regards to the other things that you could outsource, I would say. And it makes the biggest difference and it sets you up to be able to outsource more strategically when you can get to that point. So this is me giving a sales pitch for you to work with Hannah. But truly, I just wanted to talk about how it's changed things for me and change things for your other clients that you work with and just like what a benefit it can be if you are like dipping your toe into the financial piece thing, but you're like, okay, I really can't do this by myself. That's where I was at is like, I'm just never going to be a finance girly. I'm never going to have that wiring in my brain, but I do have a desire to understand. And so I'm going to work with somebody who does have the expertise and does have the willingness to educate. And like for me, that's why it made sense to hire you. So I just want to talk to the people who may be at the stage where they're like, okay, yeah, I think I might want some help because this is good. So why don't we just start in general by like what you offer, and then we can talk about how it's personally applied to me.
Yes, so my main offer is the bookkeeping support. And typically, this starts as like a setup or cleanup, right? We have to get your records in order to make sure we can manage them on an ongoing basis. Because if they're not accurate from when we start, then they're not going to be accurate as we continue. So we need to make sure everything's accurate. We're in a software, everything's golden, and then we'll continue managing it for you. You get the monthly reports. And then my favorite thing that I offer is the quarterly calls because the education is really important to me. And this is something that I actually prefer to only work with entrepreneurs who want to learn. Like, you don't have to love money and you don't have to become a pro with money, but I am so passionate about like the integrity and like striving to be the best in my business and help others do the same. I want to work with people who have that passion of like, I want to be the best. I want to have the information to grow my business strategically and like use best practices, right? If I make a recommendation of, hey, this is not a business expense, please don't put this on your business account. I would appreciate if that is taken into consideration because I'm trying to look out for you. And so I think that's a really special part of why the peace is so important to me because I want to educate you and I want you to be comfortable with your money and I want you to be comfortable with spending your money and saving your money within the business, and then that also kind of trickles into your personal life as well. And so that's like my main offer. I will say if anyone's like, I'm definitely not ready for a bookkeeper yet, there is a one-time budget session that we offer too. So like you can start there. If you're like, I'm not quite ready for any type of commitment, we will still build a budget for you and we will kind of like give you that framework and that strategy for you if you need help with that. But I love making it peaceful. I love seeing the stress just like melt away from people because now it's not unknown and it's not so scary and we have a plan. And so that's just like my favorite thing. It's like a puzzle that I get to solve for all my clients. And I just love it.
I love that so much. And I agree. The stress has melted away, and I feel like we almost did that like budget session for our first call. So I've experienced that as well. And just having the budget is extremely, extremely helpful because I've kind of set up like my own set of personal rhythms that are in tandem with what you are doing for me. Because obviously I still invoice my clients, I still pay my contractors. You're just keeping track of all of those numbers for me, but I'm still involved. And so just to kind of share with people what I'm doing on a regular basis, in addition to what Hannah does for me, which is those monthly reports and quarterly calls. I have a monthly finance meeting where we go over all of our transactions and like put the actuals in the budget and then see if we are exceeding or below our like set what would it be called, like the projected budget.
Yeah, if you're on par with like what you plan to spend or if you spent more or less than what you thought you would.
Yeah. So we'll put it all in. So we're actually like, I think typing in the numbers, at least for a little while, is really helpful because then you're like really connected with what you actually spent. And then you had like a budget template that we could just like plug everything into. You already have your formulas in there. So if I were to be like, I want to do this, you would just like type it all together and see if it works, kind of thing. So after I've written out all the actuals of our budget and we've assessed them, then we're like, how do we feel about this? And that's something that you told us to do. It's like, how do you feel about your spending? Like, is it actually, if you're over budget, is that actually a problem, or do you just need to change your budget? Because if you don't feel bad about it, it could just be like something that needs to be shifted. And there's probably things, like there are things that I'm seeing that we overestimated for that we could probably lessen. So things can kind of shift around. So after we do that, then I go through and I do all of my like bill payment, tithing, credit card payments, and then I set aside. I think that's the biggest thing, is setting aside. So I have a certain monthly amount that I set aside for my business expenses, a certain monthly amount that I set aside for my personal expenses, and then a certain amount that I put away into savings for each business and personal. So then the money's just there when you need it.
Yes.
It's magic.
We love it. My favorite.
It's so good. So I feel like if I am like responsible to just do those things, like you said, it's like you just got to follow the steps. It's not rethinking everything every single time. Once you follow the steps, like you start to just feel the peace.
Yes. And you, like you mentioned before, you have kind of routine with that. You have rhythm established, and it can be hard to do the steps initially because like this is a new habit. If you've never
It
sat
is
down
hard.
and like done a budget before, it's really hard to sit
The
down and
worst.
but then the more you do it and the more you start seeing the results and you're seeing like everything come together, it gets easier and easier. Very much like anything else. Like if you're gonna go to the gym or you're gonna like start a new hobby or like take anything, the first few times you're going to do it, of course you're going to be bad at it because like this is a new skill, you've never done it before. But if you don't give up and you keep with it, it does get easier and easier, and you see the results and you get more excited about it. And so then that kind of just encourages you to continue going because you're like, oh my gosh, I do have savings, I have money, the bills are paid every single month, I don't have to stress about anything. And you have that rhythm of money in and money out, in a comfortable manner, which is how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to just save and save and save and save, and we're also not supposed to just spend and spend and spend and spend.
Right.
It's very much a rhythm and like flow that we want to establish. So that's
I
really good.
love that. And you don't have to be stressed when tax season comes around because you've already been setting aside.
Exactly.
Gosh, yeah, so good. So, okay, so this is my favorite part of this, of you, is because you know all the, like you were saying, the percentage thing about you can only pay yourself half. Like, that's just not a generally known fact, I feel like. So, you have it in your head, like, here's the percentages, this is how things should look. And I think that was one of the most valuable peace giving things when we first started. And I had you look at everything, and I was like, are my ratios okay? Like, is everything good? Because I don't know.
Yes, I love the ratios, and to me, it kind of like the rhythm, right? That is establishing a healthy balance, right? If we are paying ourselves too much, we're probably not leaving enough for taxes and business expenses. If our business expenses are crazy, there's probably not enough to be paying ourselves a good amount. And so the ratios are never like set in stone, right? Each company is going to have some variation for what actually makes sense for them and what is the most strategic way to organize everything for them as like their own company. But there is like the general guidelines of if you have this balance, everything should be accounted for, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yes. And so, as we are preparing to make our first home purchase, that's obviously a stressful thing, figuring out if you have the money for it. For us, it's going to be a pretty big jump in expenses because our rent right now is just so good. And so, being able to just come to you and be like, hey, my expenses are this right now, they're going to change to that. Will I be okay? And if not, what do I need to do in order to make that happen? Just having you to just be like, can you do this math? Is and also your opinion on things, because you'll be like, yeah, so this is all the facts, and like this is what I think that you should do about that. And I just love it. I love it.
Good. I like sharing my opinion, so.
And so I will say, like, for myself personally, having you for that. Oh, that's another thing, is like you aren't like, I'm only talking about business. Like, you are very much like, these things are connected, and I want to help you have success in the holistic picture of your finances. That's also really a gift because, like you said, they're connected, the same principles apply to each. So it's like, I need to make sure that I'm understanding it for everything.
Yes, like to show how they are the same. It's the same balance, right? The same rhythm. The percentages might be a little different because you typically have more variation in your personal life. But at the same time, like if we exceed a certain percentage of our income for our housing, we might not have enough left for all the other areas. Or if we have an insane amount of debt, that's going to make it really difficult to cover all of our expenses. And so finding the best rhythm and then creating plans, like if we do have debt to pay off, like for example, one of my other clients, she actually has a 9 to 5 in addition to her job. And so we made a plan last year that she actually wasn't going to pay herself anything from the business. And all of that went to her debt and her student loans. And now she only has one student loan left and everything else has been paid.
That's amazing.
So just like the strategy there, like being strategic in, hey, your bills are all covered from your 9 to 5. Let's use the business money to cover other things so that down the road, she has less personal expenses. It will be easier to leave the 9 to 5 and have her business support her because she won't have as many personal expenses to cover. So little things like that, like the strategy and like thinking of the future and like planning for that. I just love that. It's my favorite.
That's like that's what really sets you apart because you're not just a bookkeeper. You know, you've got that strategy piece. And you know, it helps me with like business development too. I wanted to share about how like there's currently like a short-term business investment that I want to pursue. And then I have another like long-term business investment that I want to pursue down the line, like within the next year. And I know that they're going to like highly increase my expenses a significant amount within the business. And so the fact that I can just do the same exact thing and come to you and be like, here's how much it would cost, can I do this? Like it's so good. And it's just like that the fact that I don't have to figure it out by myself, it's that.
And I think there's something to be said too, of like just having someone else, right? Because sometimes when we work things out, like we are capable of doing it all on our own. But there is something that adds a lot of peace and reassurance when you have someone else also look at it and like confirm and be like,
Yes.
yes, that is okay. And so you're not
Yes.
like second guessing yourself, like, is
Yeah.
this really a smart decision? Is it not? To have an outside person who is not emotionally attached to your money and who is not going to make like a crazy decision based out of fear or like scarcity or something like that, but to just see the facts. Like, what are the facts? Is this smart? Is this not smart? And why? And to be able to then share that, I feel like that also adds a lot of relief. And that's something
Yeah.
too, even in just discussing it like with your husband, like my husband and I talk about our finances together a lot as well. And it provides that kind of that sense of peace. Or if like one of us will be like, oh, should we buy this? And the other person goes, I don't know. To have that feedback of like, maybe it's not like the best decision. That might have been like an impulse decision. Or yes, we definitely need that. Let's go get it. Like, to just have that feedback, I feel like is really, really beneficial.
Yes. I feel like the biggest lesson God's been teaching me lately, and you know all about this because I've talked to you about it, is just the leaning not on your own understanding. Like, even though you are capable, doesn't mean that you have to be the one to figure it all out by yourself every single time. And I think I've functioned like that for so long that I'm verbally processing this in the moment, that I feel like I'm almost burnt out on figuring out on my own.
Yeah, for sure. That's
And
okay.
so, yeah,
Talking about the Essentialism book, I don't remember the author's name. If you want to put that in the notes as
yeah, I can
well.
put it in the description.
But they, I don't remember what chapter it was. They talked about the decision fatigue. Like in our society, we have so many decisions to make and so much like seeking, so much stuff trying to get our attention. It is hard and you get burnt out and you can't make decisions by yourself. And so to have the humility to be like, actually, someone else could figure this out for me. Like, I
Yeah.
actually want to delegate this. I've done the same thing because, again, we are so similar. I did the same with an assistant. I was like, I'm capable of doing all the work myself. However, my life would be a lot more peaceful and a lot more pleasant if I did not have to do it all by myself. And so, in just bringing on someone else who I can send an email to and be like, hey, could you help me with this? And then they do it. That's extraordinary. That is such a blessing. Like you said, even like for us, an example, bookkeeping, like, yes, of course I can do that. It's also easier for me to do that because that's the way my brain is wired. So it's going to probably take me half the time and half the stress that it would have taken you. And the
Yeah.
same goes for like other things of outsourcing and even like for influencers and working with you. You're going to be able to do it way faster and way more efficiently because this is what you do every single day. I think that's just the power of outsourcing is so real in lowering your mental load and lowering that stress. And there is financial benefit too. I feel like when you're not so stressed, you can actually build your business a lot better.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh, going to have a whole rant about outsourcing, but it's so so true. And I just need to get over my pride, honestly. Like that's what it's been. Is I'm happy to like hire a contractor to do my client work for me, but when it comes to replacing myself and my work, I have a harder time
Yes, it's
with
definitely
that.
scary. That's why I started. I started small with an assistant. She just does like
Assistant's perfect.
yeah, she just does a few things for me, and then we'll
Yeah.
like build up to more as time goes on. But I totally get it. It's not easy at all.
It's a paradox too, because it's like that's all I want is like just freedom and have someone else do it. But then like when it actually comes down to
Yeah.
Giving it up.
I'm the same way. Because there's like, you want it done a certain way, so it's like the control freak in you comes out, and you're like, I think I'll just do it myself. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
okay.
but yes, if you are managing your finances well, then you're able to know if you can outsource, and the potential
Yeah.
that your business has when you start to do that is just absolutely exponential.
Exactly. And even if you can't outsource right in the moment, you'll be able to see what needs to happen for you to outsource. Or even kind of like what I've done in my own business, like start small. You don't have to outsource everything right at the beginning. Or like you said, bookkeeping is really not that expensive for most, especially like service providers. The bookkeeping is very easy, I'll be honest. In my personal opinion, it's very easy. The steps are all the same. The integrations are mostly the same, and so it's actually not that expensive, and you're still kind of maintaining that creative control over your business. You're just getting someone else to keep your like finances organized for you, which
Yeah.
is a huge blessing as you're trying to grow.
Yeah. And the fact that you have a CPA on your team, so I didn't even have to like send anyone documents. She literally just had everything because you already had it. Like that was also really beautiful.
Yes, we love efficiency.
We love it. Yeah, the systems I think is a big part of it is like deciding once on what your system is going to be, and that's going to save you decision fatigue. I think I was actually processing as you were talking, like I definitely have decision fatigue, like majorly.
It's hard.
That's why I'm so tired. But I like then I gaslight myself and I'm like, you're not even doing that much. You're not even working, 10-hour days. Like why are you so worn out?
Well, I don't remember who I was talking to. I think it might have actually been in one of the Sanctified calls, but they were talking about the events. Like, even like for a faith based person, like God created us and He told all the people to like have this party and then have this party, and each party is 7 days long. Like, don't do any work for all of these days, don't do any work for all of these days. Like, I think our culture specifically has created the work week and the hustle culture and all that, when like, is that necessary to get all your work done and to be successful? Absolutely not. And so it is that like unlearning what we've been taught, and going back to that book, the essentialism book, it talks about this in the book as well. Like, why are we like measuring success by the busyness of our schedule? Like, I want people to see how free my schedule is, how open my calendar is, and be like, wow, what a blessing. You get to stay home and you get to read a book and do nothing all day long. Well, really, you're not even doing nothing. Like having a garden, reading books, and going for walks, being outside, traveling, pouring into the community. There are so many ways to spend your time without it being like really stressful. And another way, I love budgeting and I love money in business, because the more money you have, the more freedom and flexibility you have to be generous and to give back.
Yes.
You actually live
Yes.
your life. So, all good things.
I love that. Luke and I are about to embark on a journey of lots of road trips in the next. We just have a lot coming up in the next couple of months. And so I was like, one of these road trips, we're just going to do a little fun dream sesh and dream up all of the things that if we had the money, we would buy and we would give and we would do and, all that stuff, because it's important to like know what you would do with it if you had it.
Yeah. And it's fun to just dream, because like it is possible.
It
Um,
is.
the more you take steps in your business to making more and more, the more like non-eventful it becomes. Like that's just a normal day of
Mhm.
like high cash flow coming in and out, because that's just the way that that's just the level at which your business operates. And it doesn't have to be this big stressful thing, because you're able to give back and save, and there's so much goodness that can be done. And it doesn't even have to be from a place of greed of like, I want to make all this money, but just blessing. Like the more you have, the more you can give away, the more you can donate and support the community, help your family, visit friends, and just like actually live your life and not
Just
just
live
work.
your life. Yeah.
It's insane.
So beautiful. A couple weeks ago, I posted episode 45 about like, I'll be happy when, and how you can actually create your dream life now because you can switch your mindset now. And that's what's going to make your future even more fulfilling and actually be what you want. And that's a lot about what this is too, is like, get it right now, because what you're looking at of all of these rich people and you're like, that's the dream life. they actually probably, some of them do, but probably don't have the healthy, peaceful inner mindset. And so it's actually probably a lot more chaotic than it looks on the outside. So if you actually really want that dream life, this is a huge piece to that puzzle of your mindset, is having that healthy outlook and rhythms of managing money.
Absolutely. And when you have the peaceful outlook and the healthy management style, you actually probably don't need to make so much to live your dream life because you're organized. And even like for my husband and I, like I don't make crazy money. Like I make good money. I make money to pay our bills and save money, but it's nothing crazy. And because we're organized, we still have the flexibility. Like both of my brothers are getting married this year. We get to go home for both weddings, no questions asked. Like,
Yeah.
To just have like the little things and like be grateful for the seasons you're in now, even if you aren't making tons of money, just the fact to have that flexibility. I get to be there with my family whenever I need to be because my business is virtual. And so I don't have to be a millionaire to be able to work anywhere. And I don't have to have designer everything to live a really satisfying, wonderful life. And I don't have to make 6 figures or more to have a satisfying life. So there's a lot of peace in the organization without necessarily having to make tons and tons and tons of money.
Such a good point. Because I feel that way. I'm like, well, I can do pretty much everything I want to do right now, and I'm not even making that much.
That's exactly it.
So good. I love it. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Instagram is my main source, I guess, my main page. I don't have a website or anything. So just Young Wealth Co. on Instagram is where you can find me and come hang out with me.
Love it. Yeah, I love your Instagram content too. So sweet. Well, thank you for being on. This has been such an amazing conversation. I know hopefully lots of helpful nuggets for people who are probably stressed about money, because let's face it, most of us probably are, but you're doing something about that. So thanks for doing what you do, being who you are, and being part of my team, because you're the best and you saved my life.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having me.
Of course. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again next week. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and we would love it if you would leave a review wherever you're listening. We'll see you next week for more tips for how to become a peaceful entrepreneur.